Finally, after around 50 days, we have entered into chapter 6, right mindfulness, samasati. Yeah. This is a really exciting chapter. One will also say we are starting to pierce into the heart of Buddhism. And this chapter here is dealt really extensively. Bhikkhu Analayo, I heard, was the disciple of Bhikkhu Bodhi. He took a PhD, and then his PhD thesis is all about this, right mindfulness. Okay, let me show you. Satipatthana, the direct path to realization. So he wrote a 336 pages just about this. Yeah, if you're really hardcore and you really want to master this topic, you can go ahead and read this. Yeah. I'll paste the link in the chat as well. But if you just want to get started, I think this chapter from this book is a good introduction. Without further ado, let's begin. The Buddha says that the Dhamma, the ultimate truth of things, is directly visible, timeless, calling out to be approached and seen. He says further that it is always available to us and that the place where it is to be realized is within oneself. The ultimate truth, the Dhamma, is not something mysterious and remote, but the truth of our own experience. It can be reached only by understanding our experience, by penetrating it right through it to its foundations. This truth, in order to become liberating truth, has to be known directly. It is not enough merely to accept it on faith, to believe it on the authority of books or a teacher, or to think it out through deductions and inferences. It has to be known by insight, grasped and absorbed by a kind of knowing, which is also an immediate seeing. This is the introduction to this chapter. Let's take a look at which sutta this is from. The truth is always available to us, and that the place where it is to be realized is within oneself. This is from the famous the Buddha Vandana. Dhammo sanditiko akaliko ehipasiko ofanaiko pacatang veditavo vinyuhi. If you ever chant in the BL, you might encounter this line. Buddha Dhamma Vandana. This is the line that I like. The ultimate truth, the Dhamma, is not something mysterious and remote, but something that we can, if we keep practicing, we can realize on ourselves, by ourselves. The truth, in order to become liberating truth, has to be known directly. Not enough to merely accept it on faith, even though it's still good to accept it on faith, but it's not enough to penetrate it, to penetrate the truth, to believe it on the authority of books or a teacher. So let's say after we read the books, and then, okay, yes, we believe the book is true. And it's also written by a teacher. When a teacher told us the same thing, yes, it's true. We accept it, but it's only based on what we read and based on what people told us. We haven't realized it on our own. And even after we think it true, deductions and inferences. We find it logical, we find it makes sense. It's not yet enough. It has to be known by insight, grasped and absorbed by a kind of knowing, which is also an immediate seeing. This is like the highest realization that anyone can achieve. Any questions for this introductory paragraph? Okay, if not, then we can read the next paragraph. How about Esther? Would you like to read?
Okay, thank you, Marcel. What brings the field of experience into focus and makes it accessible to insight is a mental faculty called in Pali sati, usually translated as mindfulness. Mindfulness is presence of mind, attentiveness, or awareness. Yet the kind of awareness involved in mindfulness differs profoundly from the kind of awareness at work in our usual mode of consciousness. All consciousness involves awareness in the sense of a knowing or experiencing of an object. But with the practice of mindfulness, awareness is applied at a special pitch. The mind is deliberately kept at a level of bare attention, a detached observation of what is happening within us and around us in the present moment. In the practice of right mindfulness, the mind is trained to remain in the present, open, quiet, and alert, contemplating the present event. All judgments and interpretations have to be suspended, or if they occur, just registered and dropped. The task is simply to note whatever comes up just as it is occurring, riding the changes of events in the way a surfer rides the waves on the sea. The whole process is a way of coming back into the present, of standing in the here and now without slipping away, without getting swept away by the tides of distracting thoughts.
I was muted. Thanks, Esther. Do you recall in previous chapter, there's a question, you raised a question about stabilizing awareness. Yeah. This paragraph started to explore that, stabilizing awareness. So let's take a look. What brings the field of experience into focus and makes it accessible to insight is a mental faculty called in Pali sati, usually translated as mindfulness. If we link back to the previous paragraph, what we want to achieve is insight. How to achieve that? Here, this line says that mindfulness is what brings the field of experience into focus. Yeah. Makes it accessible to insight. So this is how mindfulness plays a key role in achieving wisdom or insight. Mindfulness is presence of mind, attentiveness, or awareness. Yet, the kind of awareness involved in mindfulness differs profoundly from the kind of awareness at work in our usual mode of consciousness. This line, all consciousness involves awareness in the sense of a knowing or experiencing of an object. The difference here with the practice of mindfulness, awareness is applied at a special pitch. What kind of pitch? The mind is deliberately kept at the level of bare attention, a detached observation of what is happening within us and around us in the present moment. In the practice of mindfulness, the mind is trained to remain in the present, open, quiet, and alert, contemplating the present event. All judgment and interpretations have to be suspended, and if they occur, we have to register and drop the judgment. Our task is simply to note whatever comes up just as it is occurring, riding the changes of events in the way a surfer rides the waves of the sea. The whole process is a way of coming back into the present, of standing in here and now without slipping away, getting swept away by the tides of distracting thoughts. This will be explained further in later paragraphs, so let's continue reading. Esther, would you like to nominate the next person to read?
Sister Aikim.
It might be assumed that we are always aware of the present, but this is a mirage. Only seldom do we become, sorry, my screen is a bit small.
Maybe I zoom in for you.
Okay.
Is this better?
No, I'm using my another. Okay. Where am I now?
Here.
Okay. Only seldom do we become aware of the present in the precise way required by the present practice of mindfulness. In ordinary consciousness, the mind begins a cognitive process with some impression given in the present, but it does not stay with it. Instead, it uses the immediate impression as a springboard for building blocks of mental constructs which remove it from the sheer facticity of the datum. The cognitive process is generally interpretative. The mind perceives its object free from conceptualization only briefly. Then immediately, after grasping the initial impression, it launches on a course of ideation by which it seeks to interpret the object to itself, to make it intelligent in terms of its own categories and assumptions. To bring this about, the mind poses concepts, join the concepts into constructs set of mutually corroborative concepts, then weave the construct together into complex interpretive schemes. In the end, the original direct experience has been overrun by ideation, and the presented object appears only dimly through dense layers of ideas and views, like the moon through a layer of clouds.
Thanks. Okay, let's try to understand this paragraph. It might be assumed that we are always aware of the present, but this is a mirage. So let's define mirage here.
Mirage.
Mirage. So an optical illusion caused by atmospheric conditions, especially the appearance of a sheet of water in a desert or on a hot road caused by the refraction of light from the sky by heated air. Yeah, basically it's an illusion. Yeah, we are usually not always aware of the present. Here it's when only seldom do we become aware of the present in the precise way required by the practice of mindfulness. In ordinary consciousness, the mind begins a cognitive process with some impression given in the present, but it does not stay with it. Instead, it uses the immediate impression as a springboard for building blocks of mental constructs, which remove it from the sheer facticity of the datum. So let's define facticity here. The quality or condition of being fact.
Facticity.
Facticity of the datum. Datum here is the singular of data. So what this line means, we started with initially recognize cognitive process. Okay, let's define cognitive. Relating to cognition. Let's define cognition. The mental action or process of acquiring knowledge and understanding through thought, experience, and the senses. Yeah. We start with recognizing the impression, a cognitive process with some impression, but it does not stay with it. It uses this impression as a springboard for building blocks of mental constructs, which remove it from the sheer fact of the data. What kind of data? Whatever impression that arises through our senses. This cognitive process is generally interpretative. The mind perceives its object free from conceptualization only briefly. Yeah. Then immediately after grasping the initial impression, we started to launch a course of ideation by which it seeks to interpret the object to itself. Yeah. Let's define ideation here. The formation of ideas or concepts. Yeah. Then this is like what Saikyang mentioned before. We start to spin stories. Yeah. By which it seeks to interpret the object itself to make it intelligible in terms of its own categories and assumptions. To bring this about, the mind posits concepts. Okay, let's define posits. There's so many difficult words here. Put forward as fact or as a basis for argument. Postulate, put forward, advance. Joins the concepts into constructs, sets of mutually corroborative concepts. Yeah, to support with evidence or authority. Then weaves the constructs together into complex interpretative themes. In the end, the original direct experience has been overrun by ideation, and the presented objects appears only dimly through dense layers of ideas and views, like the moon through a layer of clouds. Yeah. Maybe we can use some example to try to understand this paragraph. Let's say, what example do you have? Usually the example that comes to mind is always try to find an object. Maybe let's use my phone, for example. If taken like if you look at the object, initially you realize it's just it's just a piece of metal combined with glasses, all the stuff. But immediately after I only recognize the fact of the data that is a metal, combination of metal and glass. It's only briefly. I immediately say, oh, this is my phone. I already interpreted it. Yeah, that is the difference. That is where I start to remove it from the sheer facticity of the data. The fact is that this is just a glass and metal. But I have, let's see this one. I have bit blocks of mental constructs. Then immediately after grasping the initial impression, I launch a course of ideation. I interpret the object to itself. Yeah, make it intelligible in terms of its own categories and assumptions. This is a phone. This is my phone. This is Samsung. I start to launched many stories about this brick, you know. If you give it to baby, he won't recognize what is this. This is just a brick to him. But because I have launched all the ideation to this brick, then I recognize this as a phone, as my phone. Yeah, this is what this whole paragraph is about. In the end, the original direct experience has been overrun by ideation, and the presented objects appears only dimly through dense layers of ideas and views, like the moon through a layer of clouds. And further, I develop attachment to this object as well. This is my phone. I like it. If this is destroyed, I would be suffering. Yeah. Not an easy paragraph to understand, but you can try to think of examples how you have launched ideations to objects, everyday objects around you. Today I shall stop here. Any questions or comments? Okay, I mean, to really understand this, we really have to read multiple times, you know. Yeah, and we have to read on as well, and it's not enough just to read this paragraph alone. So, second, yes.
Can I have a suggestion?
Yes.
You go back to the first paragraph.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, second one. So the second paragraph. So mindfulness is, attention and awareness at the present moment, right? So for today, the exercise, like what I've suggested 2 days ago, don't have judgment, try and observe what is happening as a third party. You try to put yourself out from the picture, like what Marcel say, my phone or what. So the eye contact with an object, then feelings will arise, right? So that time, you try not to interpret anymore. Don't think about this feeling like this is good, this is bad, or go into sometimes auto mode, like we look at the phone, we don't even think about the brand, this is my phone, we just auto mode text. So we just get caught up with the subsequent interpretation and things like that. So I take my phone, I just, without attention, I just key, I just text, I just reply. Whenever there's a prompt, because there's notification. So the notification very fast, the impulse go in, your mind just react to it straight away, reply. Don't have this filter of, this is a message, then I look at the message, the words, what does the meaning of this word, we don't spend time doing this. The mind straight away jumps into it, replies straight away, and then sometimes we regret, we regret things that we say, sometimes it can be not truthful because we just respond. We don't even, think. That feeling, perception, mental formation come very fast, very, very fast. So we just react and react, habitual. Just do. So probably we can today try to just practice the looking instead of thinking. Just look. Whenever you hear something, see something, think about something, just look at it, keep looking at it. Yeah. And maybe tomorrow we can come back and share some personal experience. That is how we put this mindfulness into practice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, thanks again. It's quite relatable. I think For me, I immediately whip out my phone and then just scroll through Facebook, Instagram without thinking. Yeah. So we can try that if you guys will, and then see if you guys have anything to share tomorrow. Any other questions or comments before we wrap up for today? Okay, if not, let's do a dedication. 厌消三障就烦恼，厌得就会证明了。普愿罪障悉消除，实是常行菩萨道。阿弥陀佛。Till we meet again, may we be guided by the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Have a mindful Tuesday ahead. Thanks everyone for participating. See you guys again next time.
Thank you, Marcel. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Had a fun time looking at your own self.